Right, brother. There's some people, right, where you learn a little bit about them and you want to stop learning about them until you hear it from the horse's mouth, because you're like, this is unbelievable. There's so many different things here. You're dominating in them all. It's just like you're putting us all to shame. And but the way I see it is, wow, you're gonna have an insane amount of stories to tell. I'm obsessed with stories, always have been since a kid. So,
Yeah,
dude, here you go. Here's a microphone. Talk a bit of shit.
just go away. Well, I've just lived my life. I've just followed the path that I put myself on. So I lost my legs when I was 9 years old. Stupidly tried jumping on a and resulted in me losing both my legs. I was a keen rugby football, as you are as a Welsh Valleys boy.
Mm.
It was kind of ingrained in my blood. And after that day, then I had to kind of choose a different path. That path that my granddad wanted me to be. He wanted me to be the next Welsh rugby star, and that wasn't the case. And yeah, I had to kind of look at what my options were whilst I was 9 years old, lying in a hospital bed, not realizing what my future kind of held for me. But I was really, really, really lucky to have the support that I had around me, so my family, my brother, um, and managed to get me through that really dark time, not knowing what was going to happen. I only spent 6 weeks in hospital.
Jeez.
Well, I was in intensive care for 2 weeks, just making sure that my skin grafts were healing and all the bits were still working. And yeah, was then spent 4 weeks in the children's ward, just learning how to use a wheelchair, learning to cope with life without legs, and simple things of like transferring from my chair onto the toilet. And
Yeah, man.
I remember, I remember one day that I was getting so stroppy with the nurses, they literally locked me in the toilet until I calmed down. Um, it was all out of banter. I had a really good relationship with the nurses, and
Yeah.
they were just like, if you're going to be this stroppy today, then that's it. You're on the toilet now. You don't know how to get off. We're not going to help you. So we're leaving you there. Um, and and yeah, so that's how I kind of carry, the hard love and that, the harsh truths kind of set in. Yeah, and I have to do this on my own. As much as my mum and dad and brother were there to support me, it's only me that's going to be able to actually action what I want to do.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, six weeks, and I was back in school. 6 weeks I was back playing with my friends, teaching them how to kind of befriend someone in a chair, without them treating me any differently. Teachers were really cautious, making sure that I was wearing my seatbelt in my chair to go around the play in um, playground and stuff. But then I was like, well, think about, I'm an active kid. If I
Mm.
have my seatbelt on, if I fall out of my chair, the chair's going to fall on top of me.
Mm.
So why do I need my chair? If I don't have it on, then I can roll away and the chair's going to go the opposite way. And you see the teachers twig then, and it's like, yeah, actually, sometimes health and safety is not what it should be. They put in place, but so I was there, just making my own decisions, adapting everything that I did. I was still playing rugby and football. I'd play in goals and use my hands as my feet, and I'd sit in the middle of a rugby pitch until kids run up to me, and I would tackle them to the floor. You know, they only did it once, because then they'd literally run around me or jump over me, but I was involved. I was with my friends, and I was enjoying doing sport again. Um, so yeah, that kind of just spiraled. That passion for wanting to prove people wrong kind of really kind of ingrained in my mentality and my ethos. And I had the opportunity whilst I was in hospital to meet a young lad who lost his legs to meningitis, and he introduced me to the world of ice sledge hockey, which is the para version of ice hockey, and you know, full contact, nitty gritty, really hard, really kind of aggressive sport that kind of just hooked me as soon as he talked to me about it.
Mm.
And then a year later, when I'd fully healed and fully recovered, I got on the ice and I caught the bug. Loved it. Loved the world of parasport. Loved the inclusive nature of it, and loved learning. loved being in an environment where I was amongst so many other people with different disabilities. And it kind of then put perspective on my own disability to go, I'm actually not too bad. I'm only missing bits, but everything that I've got works. I was in an environment where there were adults with spina bifida or spinal injuries, meningitis survivors. And it was actually, everything that I've got still works. So I'm going to run with this and do it. After that first hockey session, I was only 10 years old. It was a senior team. The next kid above me was the guy who came to see me in hospital, Rhys. He was 16. And the coach kind of pulled my mum aside and looked at, was like, really wanted to play, but I can't let him. He's just too young. I'm scared that he's going to get injured. Mum being a Welsh strong mum,
Here we go.
Sport, literally almost like grabbed him by the scruff. Because the first time that she's seen me smile and be active in so long, was like, you were not stopping my son from playing this sport. And he was like, all right, okay. And they didn't have no equipment, so I didn't have no helmet. I had big shoulder pads. I've got an image of myself sitting in this, like the old school chairs, the big bucketed seats. That's what the old style hockey stage was made of. And I was like sat in it as a really skinny little kid and having to push around in this sledge. For those who don't know what sledge hockey is, you literally just sit down on the ice on a bucket seat metal frame. You use 2 sticks to propel it along the ice. And you've got the blades on the top of the sticks and metal picks at the bottom. So it wasn't like I was being wrapped up in cotton wool. These people were using weapons to move themselves along the ice, and so you can understand why my coach at the time was quite apprehensive about having a 10-year-old on the ice with a bunch of seniors. But yeah, it was that kind of hook that I needed, that something that I wanted to grasp my teeth into and run with, and that kind of started my life off in that parasport world, and it spiraled from there. I wanted to try absolutely everything and anything. I've dressed up in a pair of jodhpurs and did dressage for a little bit on the back of a horse. Did archery, shooting, rock climbing, whitewater rafting. Anything that I could adapt and kind of make my own, I would. And then even when it came to PE, when I moved to the comprehensive, it got a little bit tougher. I had to kind of, because where my home base and where my catchment area was, all my friends went to 2 or 3 different schools. None of them were accessible. So I had to kind of move away from my friend group that kind of taught me to be me again and helped me to be me again. To then start a new life and a new venture in this big new school. I didn't know anybody there. And for the first 3 weeks, I literally sat in a corner just watching people walk by, not really knowing how to engage with them. And they didn't know how to engage with me either, until it got one of our PE lessons, and it was swimming. And they were asking, can you swim? I was like, yeah, I can swim. I've been brought up on the seaside. I'm Puth Call, born and bred, and just get me in the water and I'll be fine. And I think it kind of opened the eyes then to the other year groups. Actually, yeah, he's just normal. He's just in a chair. Because I was doing lengths past a lot of the other students in my class, and that kind of broke down the barrier, kind of broke the ice a little bit, just to go, oh yeah, okay, so you're really good at this. And I was like, oh yeah, hi, I'm Nathan. I lost my legs years ago, and then that was it. It kind of just spiraled from there, and school became a real ground for me to develop again and learn and grow new skills once again, and so that was kind of my early years. And I say early years, then 13, 14, I found athletics. I was just doing a small kind of wheelchair sports spectacular event that they used to hold, that we still hold in Wales, just an environment where you can try as many parasports as possible. And my coach found me just doing table tennis and dragged me aside and got me throwing some rubber toys, rubber dog toys. That's all they were. And he said, right, you got pretty good at that. You're going to come across to me, and I'm going to teach you how to throw them properly. And that was it. That kind of sparked my athletics career while still playing ice hockey. So for so long, I was doing 3 or 4 different sports to really kind of get that multi-skill ingrained into my body, and it kind of helped me then throughout the rest of my life, I guess, because I haven't really focused on one thing for too long. I've always kind of jumped into something else, or picked something up alongside it. And it's what I do now as a coach with my youngsters. I don't want them to specialize too soon. I don't want them to have their eyes set on one thing, because I've been there where if something goes wrong, then your identity goes.
Yep.
Right? So I don't want them to have that one thing that they really rely on and call themselves, that's me.
Mm-hmm.
That, to be fair, and that took me a long time to really learn. And I'll come on to that in a bit when I retired from sport. But so I was doing everything. And at my first senior championships in athletics, I came back with 2 golds and a silver at the age of 14. And that's when I kind of realized, I'm pretty good at chucking things. I need to stick at this, to be fair.
Pretty good, he says. 2 golds and a silver is pretty good. It means the average pop is bollocks.
So yeah, that was it. That kind of started me off on my athletics career, and it kind of went bigger and bigger and bigger. My first Paralympic Games was with ice hockey. Went out to Turin in 2006. We didn't finish last, which was the main thing. And when I returned from Turin, British Athletics were just like, right, we need you to focus on athletics now, because Beijing is 2 years away, and you're pretty close to making the side. And that was a really tough decision to kind of step away from the sport to give me my life back. And it was a fond farewell. It was I did my first Paralympic Games, at the Winter Paralympic Games, but it wasn't going to get me to the pinnacle of where I wanted to get to. Ice hockey wasn't a funded sport, still isn't a funded sport, and I wanted to make a name for myself. And so I kind of came to the dark side and went to athletics and pursued that for as long as my shoulders held up. Went to Beijing, phenomenal experience. I was the youngest male thrower in my classification. I did all 3, shot put, javelin, and discus. Shot and disc were my weaker events, but I made the final in both, so that was a big achievement. And then javelin was on the last day of the competition. They switched it all about to start off with. My parents came out to Beijing to watch, but they missed my javelin because they shift the timetable. My mum and dad had already booked a holiday to go down to Sanya, so they weren't there in the stadium, unfortunately. And because of that, because I know they weren't there to kind of support, I had a meltdown the night before. Literally rung my coach up at 12 o'clock at night and said, I'm not good enough to be here. I'm freaking out. What am I doing? I'm done. I'm not on the right headspace. And his words were, look, just shut the fuck up and go to sleep. It's just like, you've done all the work. You've put the work and you've put the effort in. You've already done this 2 times. You've done your shot. You've done your disc. This is your event. This is what, this is your best event. Just chill out, calm down. And when you wake up in the morning, you'll feel a lot better. So yeah, I went to sleep that night, woke up the next morning, still felt pretty damn nervous, but the nerves that I was used to, the nerves that I knew that I was ready to go out to war almost.
Yep.
And yeah, so pushed into that stadium with 80,000 people just kind of screaming at the person next to you was overwhelming. The Bird's Nest Stadium, it kind of overlaps you. It kind of brings you in. And it is like a big, massive cauldron. One of the best stadiums I've been in. And yeah, so just kind of did what I had to do. Finished 4th by 30 centimeters. In the first instance, heartbroken. Then the realization set in and was like, this is your first summer games. the youngest in the field. The guy only tipped you by 30 centimeters, and he's twice your age. And he even said the same, say, Rustislav Polman from Czech Republic. He came up to me afterwards, shook my hand, and was like, that was really close, well done. He asked me how old I was. And when I said I'm now 20, you could see his face just go, okay. He said, you'll get me next time. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna let me try. I'm gonna be chasing you around everywhere. And that's what we did when we came back from Beijing. Me and my coach sat down and it was like we were gonna try and follow him to every competition that he was at, just to try and minimize that gap every single time. But unfortunately, early 2009, I had a really bad shoulder accident. Fell out of my chair and kind of hyperextended, tore bicep, tore tricep, tore labrum, and didn't get diagnosed until 9 months after it got done. Because I was hypermobile for the shoulders and was really strong anyway, kind of kept it all in place. So when I was doing all the standard range of motion tests, they were coming up as normal for a non-elite athlete. So they were just going, oh yeah, it's just a strain. It's just a strain. It'll recover. It'll recover. So I did all season just treating it as a strain. And by the end of 2009, it was like, still not right. It's still painful. So they actually, it was only then that they put me through to go get an MRI scan. And the surgeon turned around to me and was like, your ligaments are like bananas. He said, they're frayed. They fill in your shoulder space. You should never have been competing this year with your shoulder like it was. It's like, well, I did try to tell them that if something wasn't right. So early 2010, so I went in, I had to go in for shoulder surgery. That was probably one of the hardest periods, I'd say, is going through that 2010 phase. I was based in London, based away from my kind of home comforts and surroundings, intensive rehab, and literally just hitting the grindstone every day. If I couldn't use my shoulder, I was doing ab work. I was on a spin bike with my prosthetics and just trying to do all the little work that I knew I could do.
Yeah.
I had a fantastic physio, and she literally just, on the thing, it was 12 hours after my surgery, she got me 70% of my range back. Because she was brutal. She was getting into the scar tissue straight away. So we can't let the scar tissue calcify. We need to get in there and break it down ASAP, and otherwise you'll never get your range of motion back. Surgeon didn't agree with her. Was like having a go at her every time I had a physio session, but it worked. I was back throwing within 6 months, 7 months of having, what was it? So labral repair, tendon repair, decompression of the shoulder. So they were in there, and they had to scrape around a lot. But what my main focus was, that it was in early 2011 would have been the World Championships out in New Zealand, and that was my main goal. But knowing that how long that season was, the season ended in August. I didn't get back to throw until September. So I only had one competition to qualify for that World Champs. And luckily we did everything that we had. It shows how powerful your mind can be when you're in that kind of situation. I spent hours and hours and hours a day just sat in front of the mirror, just mentally processing my throw, mentally just kind of watching videos of me throwing, so that when I went to throw, I still had that kind of muscle memory ingrained into my neurological system that was just like, no, right, don't have to learn this. This is still there. You still know how to throw. So let's just go back and do what you know how to do. And I came back in that first competition. I threw a personal best and qualified for the competition, qualified for the World Champs. I was like, okay, that's great. That 7 months hasn't been wasted. And
this stuff works.
Yeah. So as soon as that competition was over, we were back into rehab, just making sure that it wasn't just a one-off. We didn't want to take any risks. And even when we were out in New Zealand, I only did 3 or 4 throwing sessions, and one of them was in the rain up in Auckland, and I had a crap throwing session from my throwing frame. So I literally just stayed in my day chair and was just throwing. This one session probably lasted about 5 hours, and the head coach at the time was just like, "Is he okay?" My coach was like, "Yeah, just let him do it. This is something that he needs to do for himself. He's not going all out. He's just trying to find that technique, that one throw that he'll be happy with." And say top was off, pouring down with rain. I was in the best place I was ever had been. I was frustrated. I loved being in that environment. I loved just being there and just throwing. And yeah, so I went into the competition and met Mr. Poleman again. He was there. He was all bandaged up in his wrist. He seen I was strapped up my shoulder. He kind of gave me the eye and was like, "You all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, I'm fine. You okay? Your wrist looks a little bit sore." He's like, "Oh, old age. I'm like, "Oh, okay." But yeah, we went into that competition and came home with a gold. So it was one of them redemption stories that actually, yeah, so no matter how many kind of peaks you hit or troughs you go, there's always, there's always a ladder to climb out of them dark times. And yeah, that was my most successful year then in 2011, because then I went on to break the world record out in Czech Republic in the November, and was like, "Oh yeah, this is great, it's awesome." And knowing then going into London 2012, I'd be world champion and world record holder, and on a massive high, and just kind of jumped back into training too soon, and my shoulder went again, and I had to go back in for my second shoulder surgery in January 2012, which was yeah, it was a hard pill to swallow, knowing that now we had a short period of time to kind of qualify for London 2012. But we did it. We got there. Didn't go the way that I would have liked it to have gone, unfortunately. I finished 10th, but it was that was coming away from London 2012. I was really questioning whether or not I still loved doing the sport. And it kept it going until 2014. But the rules were changing. The sport that I originally got into in that throw-in wasn't the sport that it once was. And they were changing loads of rules within my classification, bringing in loads of changes, and the officials just weren't getting the changes right. And that's what penalised me in London 2012, is that they disqualified 4 of my throws for a rule that didn't apply to me. It applied for someone with 2 legs. And so it was a tough competition. They apologized afterwards, which is nice, but it didn't make a difference that, sat in the middle of your home crowd in tears, with your family in tears around you, just trying to fight for you. And hey, that sport is, sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't. And yeah, so after 2012, kind of pushed on 2014. So it was the European champs done in Swansea. So I thought I'll do Swansea, and then see what happens after that. But yeah, then after 2014, I decided to retire from throwing and try and find a job. Never worked before. Been living a life of an elite athlete since the age of 15. Never written a CV, and shit got real, kind of thing. It's just like getting taken out of that bubble, and then yeah, not realizing that you're not an athlete anymore. And this is what I kind of mentioned earlier, is that I identified myself, that my whole identity was an athlete. Now, I didn't know how to live in the real world. I didn't know tact. I didn't know any of that stuff when it comes to getting a job. So yeah, that was a real learning curve when I came out of sport, and didn't really hit me until probably 2015, where then the disability kind of things came back round. When I was trying to do, whereas within para sport, having that disability it's normal. You're in that environment all the time with someone else with different impairment, and yeah, it hit me really hard. I can't really put my finger on it, but it was like yeah, post-traumatic stress. So, it was something that kind of was there somewhere, but didn't really manifest until I was out of this protective bubble. Um, and it it was that then that, because I'd stopped sport completely. I was still coaching it, but I wasn't doing it for myself. And it was at that time I was like, something isn't right. Why am I feeling like this now? Is it because have I left sport too soon? Is there still some part of me that wants to do it? Um, so I thought, right, let's give it one more crack. Let's try something else. Let's transfer into a different sport. And I was, funny enough, I was doing a little bit of work with weightlifting Wales at the time, and Commonwealth Games was coming up out in Gold Coast. Like, oh, just jump on a bench. You're a strong lad. You've been in the gym literally all your life. Just give it a go. So, yeah, okay, why not? Let's give it a go. So yeah, I've qualified for Gold Coast in the Commonwealth Games in a different sport again. Um, I PB lifted in my competition, finished dead last, but it was probably one of the best experiences I ever had. Because I was doing it for me.
Mm.
I realized that as I was getting later and later on in my career, I wasn't doing it for me anymore. I was doing it for the people above me because they pay you to do a job, and I was a slave to what they were demanding. It wasn't for me anymore. And yeah, so it really hit home that actually, if you want to do a sport again, you need to take that pressure off yourself. You need to find that love for it and do it because you want to do it, not because you feel like you have to. And then yeah, so I came back from Gold Coast as I think I'm the first Welsh athlete to compete in winter, summer, Commonwealth Games in 3 different sports, which is an accolade that I like to have, and that's why I've now all up behind me. So I got my winter jersey there, got my Commonwealth Games, and I've got my London 2012 jersey as well. So and now I've fallen back in love with sledge hockey again. I'm doing it again, and part of the GB team, and we've got aspirations to make it to the next Paralympic Games in Milan, because I'm still, a few members of the team were part of that 2016. We're still going, and we just think it'd be really cool 20 years on to get back to Italy to play hockey again. We haven't been since 2006, so the team actually hasn't been to another Paralympic Games. So we've just gone, you know what? This one last hurrah. Let's give it our all. Let's be the team that we were back in 2006. And it's not going to be easy. There's new teams popping up everywhere, but let's just give it a go and see what happens. And so that's what we're doing now. Yeah, so that's my sporting career. There's a whole other things beside it. So,
Dude, that's unbelievable, man. Like getting over the adversity of then attacking one spot, never mind 3, and then going back to the original spot.
it's a sport that I love. It's a sport that I'll always go back to, and I've always missed because I got told you can't do it, like a dog with a bone in you. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
I still wanted to.
Especially as a young lad, right? Back home, like if you get told you can't do anything, it could be bloody painting. Like
Yeah,
that lad is gonna go full noise, and he's gonna end up trying to make himself Picasso. Like
yeah,
it's not gonna work out, mate. You've now set off this absolute rampant savage that's just not going to stop. And it's like, well, unfortunately, sometimes you need that little bit of rough treatment, right? Because
yeah.
it ends up propelling people forward. And it seems like it's happened to you, man. And that's honestly, dude, like, I'm so fired up. I could punch through a wall, headbutt a baby right now. Obviously, I'm not going to. Wow, maybe. I don't know. Depends what it says to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Depends if it's a prick or not. If it's from Manchester, I'm definitely headbutting it. We come out, they play Wonderwall, and you get a headbutt. That's all we get. But dude, like honestly, overcoming it sounds really cliche, right? And I don't mean it like that. But to me, overcoming the mental barriers is the biggest thing.
Yeah,
Because it takes away all the physical limitation, right? It takes away everything, like the cultural differences, the fucking box, the genders, whatever. Just takes all that away because we are
yeah,
all human beings, right? But I know there will be a fucking mental barrier here, mental barrier there, at the start of the road, at the end of the road, and all the way in between. And overcoming that, man, is unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's where the inspiration comes from.
It all comes down to choices, and on that day when I was 9 years old, I had two choices: jump or not to jump. If
Yep.
you jump, then you're gonna have to live with that choice. You're gonna live with that choice. Make sure you make the most out of that choice. And you've got two doors always to open: a yes or a no. And it's having that mentality and that mental strength to realize if you fucked up, then there's only one. You can't go back through that door. It's done. So just keep on moving forward with it and make sure you don't make that mistake again.
Yeah, man.
And it's having that resilience and that that mental awareness then of yourself to be able to push through that. And yeah, sometimes it is shit. Sometimes it's hard. Most days are hard these days, but you've only got one life, and unfortunately, you've got to live it. And if you are struggling, talk to people, because they all say in a problem halved is a problem. A problem shared is a problem halved. And it's gospel now. Ever since I've been with my wife, I've opened up a lot more. I was this big hard thrower who didn't really talk about emotions, but actually it's okay. It's all right to talk. It's all right to share. It's all right to cry. God, I cry to bloody Bambi most bloody weekends whenever it's on any Disney film. I open up and I blub too. So
you and me both, man.